Is Monica White still alive? What happened to the real survivor of the dating app killer? Is Monica White still alive? Yes, Monica White survived her terrifying encounter with Anthony Robinson, the man later known as the dating app killer and shopping cart killer. Recent 2026 coverage continues to identify White as the survivor whose experience inspired Lifetime's The Dating App Killer, the Monica White story. But there is much more to Monica's story than simply surviving a date with a dangerous man. She met Robinson through a dating app in late 2020, believing she had finally found someone she could trust. What she didn't know was that the man she was getting close to would later be convicted of murdering 2 women and become the primary suspect in several other deaths. So how did Monica White survive? What made her realize something was wrong? And what happened to her after Anthony Robinson was arrested? Let's go back to the beginning. Monica White was a divorced woman who had reached a point in her life where she was ready to start dating again. Her son had left home to attend military school, and Monica decided that she wanted to focus more on herself and her personal life. Like millions of other people, she turned to online dating. That's where she met Anthony Robinson. At first, there was nothing about Robinson that immediately screamed danger. He was charming, he appeared interested in her, and, according to Monica's account, their conversations made her believe there could be a genuine connection between them. This is one of the most disturbing parts of the story, because Robinson wasn't approaching women looking obviously dangerous. He was using dating apps to meet women and establish relationships. That gave him an opportunity to gain their trust. And Monica initially trusted him too. Eventually, Robinson traveled to meet her in person. And this is where Monica's experience began to change. Something about him didn't feel right. During his visit, his behavior became increasingly strange. The relationship moved much faster than Monica was comfortable with. There were things he said and things he did that made her uneasy. And instead of ignoring those feelings, Monica began paying attention to them. That decision may have saved her life. One of the most important lessons from Monica's story is that she didn't necessarily have one dramatic moment where everything suddenly became obvious. Instead, there were small warning signs, the kind of things that can be easy to dismiss when you believe you're getting to know someone. But Monica eventually trusted her instincts. She began pulling away, and that distance became extremely important. Months later, Robinson's real identity began coming to light. In November 2021, police discovered the bodies of Aline Beth Redman and Tonita Smith near a motel in Harrisonburg, Virginia. A shopping cart was found near the bodies. Investigators eventually connected Robinson to the killings. His case became known nationally because of the disturbing way he allegedly transported victims' bodies. He was subsequently charged and ultimately convicted of murdering Redman and Smith. And that's when Monica realized just how close she had potentially come to becoming another victim. The man she had met through a dating app wasn't simply a strange boyfriend. He was a convicted killer. And authorities would eventually identify him as a primary suspect in several other women's deaths. The number of suspected victims has been reported as at least 6, although Robinson has been convicted in 2 murders. For Monica, the realization must have been terrifying. She had allowed this man into her life. She had met him in person. She had trusted him. And then she discovered what he was allegedly capable of. Monica later spoke publicly about the experience. In an interview quoted by People, she explained that she knew something was wrong with Robinson and that, after learning what had happened to the other women, the pieces finally came together. She also described feeling guilt and questioning whether she might somehow have contributed to Robinson's behavior. But that is an important distinction. Monica was not responsible for Robinson's crimes. She was someone who survived an encounter with a dangerous person. And her willingness to talk about what happened has helped draw attention to the warning signs surrounding online dating. That is also why Lifetime turned her experience into a movie. The Dating App Killer, the Monica White story, premiered in February 2026 and stars Lela Rochon as Monica White and Jared Joseph as Anthony Robinson. The film dramatizes Monica's experience and the frightening discovery that the man she met online was a serial killer. The movie has introduced Monica's story to an entirely new audience. And that has led many viewers to ask the same question: what happened to Monica after she escaped? The answer is that she survived. And unlike the women Robinson was convicted of killing, Monica was able to recognize that something was wrong and distance herself before it was too late. Her story is therefore fundamentally different from the stories of Robinson's confirmed victims. She wasn't murdered. She wasn't found in one of the locations connected to his crimes. She escaped the relationship. And she eventually came forward to talk about what she experienced. That makes her one of the most important people connected to this case, because she can describe what Robinson was like before investigators knew who he really was, and that's extremely valuable. Serial killers often don't look like the stereotypical villains people imagine. They can appear normal, they can be charming, they can be attentive, they can say exactly what someone wants to hear. That's one reason dating app relationships can create unique risks. People may form an emotional connection before they've had the opportunity to verify someone's identity or understand their background. Monica's experience demonstrates why paying attention to discomfort can matter. She didn't need to know Robinson was a killer to know that something about the relationship wasn't right. And once she recognized that, she listened to herself. That decision became critical. But there is another heartbreaking part of Monica's story. After Robinson was arrested, she learned about the other women whose lives had been lost. And she had to confront the realization that she could potentially have been one of them. Imagine discovering that someone you had welcomed into your life was later accused of killing women he met through similar circumstances. That's a psychological burden that can last long after the immediate danger is gone. Monica has spoken about the experience because she wants people to understand what happened. Her story isn't simply about being lucky. It's also about recognizing warning signs. It's about trusting your instincts. And it's about understanding that someone who appears charming online may not necessarily be who they claim to be. Meanwhile, Robinson's legal story has continued. In May 2026, he was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 10 years after his convictions for the murders of Redmond and Smith. He is currently serving those sentences in Virginia. Authorities continue to connect him to other suspected victims, although those cases have not resulted in the same convictions. That distinction matters. There is a difference between a person being convicted of a crime and being suspected in other cases. Robinson's confirmed convictions concern Redmond and Smith. The additional deaths remain part of the broader investigation and allegations surrounding him. And that brings us back to Monica. Is Monica White still alive? Based on the latest available reporting, yes. There is no credible report that Monica White has died. In fact, recent coverage surrounding Robinson's imprisonment and the Lifetime movie continues to discuss Monica as the surviving woman whose experience helped expose how dangerous her relationship with him had been. Her story has now reached an even larger audience because of the Lifetime movie. But it's important to remember that the film is a dramatization. Some events are condensed or presented differently for television. The real Monica White's experience is the foundation, but viewers shouldn't assume that every scene happened exactly as shown. The central truth, however, remains incredibly disturbing. Monica believed she had met a potential romantic partner. Instead, she encountered a man who would later be convicted of murdering 2 women. And she managed to walk away. That's why Monica White's story stands out. It isn't a story about someone who knew she was dealing with a killer from the beginning. She didn't. She was meeting someone through a dating app, just like millions of people do. She saw warning signs. She became uncomfortable. And she ultimately trusted her instincts. That decision changed everything. So, what happened to Monica White? She survived her relationship with Anthony Robinson. She later learned that he was connected to a series of horrific crimes. She spoke publicly about her experience. And her story eventually became the basis for the 2026 Lifetime movie, The Dating App Killer, The Monica White Story. Today, Anthony Robinson is serving life sentences for the murders of 2 women. Monica White, meanwhile, remains alive. And perhaps the most important part of her story isn't simply that she survived. It's that she listened when something didn't feel right. Because sometimes you don't know exactly why you're uncomfortable. You don't have all the evidence. You don't know the person's entire history. But you can still recognize that something isn't right. Monica White did. And that instinct may have saved her from becoming another name in the tragic story of the dating app killer. She wasn't one of his confirmed victims. She was the woman